everybody, and welcome back to Piano Practice Partner. Thank you for joining me. I hope you're doing well and enjoyed last week's lesson where we were looking at this, the F major scale. And following that lesson, we had a practice along session where we drilled this with our right hand, with our left hand, and then both hands together. So hopefully that's feeling okay. As a quick refresher, the F major scale sounds and looks like this. In the right hand and in the left hand. And in both hands together. So that's what we learned last time and what we spent some time practicing. So if that still feels a bit rusty, we're new to this, remember, just keep going back and chipping away, making it more and more consistent, working over that transition point, and then building a bit more speed. We don't have to rush too far ahead. We can just incrementally up the tempo little by little as we get better and better and it becomes more and more familiar to our fingers. So today we're going to look at another major scale. Instead of the F major scale, we are going to be looking at the G major scale. So let's figure out what the G major scale is. In our first lessons together, and we recapped this in the last lesson, we worked out a formula which would tell us any major scale, which was comprising of a combination of whole notes and half notes. If you remember, a half note was a note that was directly next door to each other. So this C and C sharp is a half step between them because they're immediately next door. Whereas the C to D is a whole note or whole step because there is a note dividing them. Whole step, half step. And using this, we know that a major scale consists of whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. So, for the C major scale, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. And that was the first scale we learned. Last week we applied this to the F major scale, so whole, whole, and then a half step, and a whole step, which means we miss out this B and jump to the C, whole, whole, and then a final half step, next door neighbour, the F. If you haven't already done so, please consider giving us a subscribe and maybe a like. It really helps me know that these lessons are working and that you're getting something out of them. So we use this template to figure out the F major scale. So what happens if we take this sequence and apply it starting on our G to find the G major scale? Let's find out. So here's our G. So we need to go a whole step, another whole, half, so it's the next door neighbour, another whole, another whole, another whole, and look here, this isn't a whole step, is it? Because it's right next door. So we'd go up to this black note here, this F sharp, and then a half step, back to the G. So in the G major scale, there is the addition of a black note, which is this F sharp. So let's do that one more time. Whole step, half step, whole step, another whole step, then a half step. Amazing, we found out the G major scale. So let's write those notes down for clarity's sake. Using the whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, we've figured out the G major scale, which is G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. So using this method, we can find any major scale very, very quickly. And it's really handy because it means we're not having to memorize where the flats are, where the sharps are, which black notes we're playing at which time. We can just think in whole steps and half steps. So now let's look at how we arrange our fingers to play this scale comfortably. Within our right hand, it's the same as the C major scale. So if you remember all the way back to that first ever lesson, we play 1, 2, 3, and then cross the thumb underneath, and then run up the rest of the fingers. It's the same with the G major scale. We're going 1, 2, 3, crossing the thumb underneath, and then running up the fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So your fourth finger comes up to that sharp note, and then your pinky lands on the octave G. On the way back down, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Crossing over the middle finger, 3, 2, 1. I'll do that one more time. 1, 2, 3, cross the thumb. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then on the way back down, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, crossing the middle finger over, 3, 2, 1. And if you're unsure of why I was saying those numbers, just to recap, we label our fingers. So 1 is the thumb, 5 is the pinky. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1. So that's the right hand. What happens with the left hand? The left hand is just the inverse of what our right hand was doing. Again, we're labeling from left to right. So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we'd play the G major on the left hand like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Crossing the middle finger over. 3, 4, 5. I'll do that one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Cross the middle finger. 3, 4, 5. On the way back down, you're just reversing that. 5, 4, 3. Crossing the thumb underneath. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. One more time. 5, 4, 3. Cross the thumb under. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And in the same manner that when we played the C major scale, our hands have to move at slightly different times. The same thing would apply here. I'll show you really slowly. We start together. 1, 2, 3. And then the right hand, the thumb crosses over, whilst the left hand carries on. And then the left hand crosses over. Do that one more time. Right hand crosses, left hand crosses there. And the way back down. Left hand crosses, right hand crosses. So they're staggered by 2 notes, so it gives you a little bit of thinking time. And whilst we're learning this and getting used to it, we can just pause over this transition while we figure out what happens. And the aim then would be to keep going back and drilling, and each time trying to make it a little bit smoother. So there we go. There is the G major scale, learn in super speedy time and hopefully makes lots of sense. We're not going to spend loads of time drilling that together now because that will come in next week's lesson when we do a practice along. If you're unfamiliar with how we work here, we have a video lesson, which is what you're watching now, where we'll break down a concept. And the following week, we'll have a practice along where I set a timer, I set up an exercise and we hit the timer and we practice along until the timer goes off. I also mute my piano so you're not distracted by my clunky playing. It's just a way of keeping focused and dedicated. We're holding each other accountable to not just learn the thing, but apply what we're learning. So there's some other things to mention about why it's useful doing our scales. Now you may be thinking, yeah, the scales are all well and good, but where are the 2-5-1s gone? I want to learn more songs. We will get to more songs. The scales are so important to know because they are kind of like our alphabet. If we understand the letters that go into making up words, we can then freely and easily make words and sentences and stories. If we just jump straight to learning songs, we miss a whole gamut of our language and how to express our language. So it does behoove us, quite a fun word, isn't it? Behoove. It behooves us to learn these scales. As dry as they may seem, there's such a good validity into learning them and to learning why they're useful. So I'll give you a good example. In those early lessons together, we learned how to make a major chord. And do you remember how we expressed that? We expressed it through Roman numerals, right? So the major chord, right down here, major chord equals the first, the third, and the fifth note of a scale. Of a major scale. So let's just explain this using the C major scale, which is the easiest scale to understand because there's no black notes, it's all white notes. So there are 8 notes here, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 is the octave of C. So to make a C major chord, we'll be playing the first note of that scale, the third note of that scale, and the fifth note of that scale. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we just have to identify where the 1, the 3, and the 5 were. And there we go, there's our C major chord. Now, knowing this is really handy. So when we came up to G, we can play a G major chord there. Beautiful. 1, 3, 5. C major, G major. When we learn our F major scale, F major. I expressed this in a previous lesson that this chord, 1, 3, 5, feels very similar, right? The hand positioning is the same. I'm just picking it up and placing it down. But if we were just to understand that this is the major chord shape, what happens when I do this? I'm playing the A and it's the same shape, but that's the A minor chord. That's the A major chord. So it's a different hand positioning. Now why? It's to do with the major scale. So if we take this whole half, and apply it to the A, let's see what happens. Whole note, whole note. Oh, see, immediately we jump up here because the next door neighbor was a half step there. So whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Wow, there's a lot of black notes there, but just by using this, we very quickly figured out how to play the A major scale. So let's count up the 1, the 3, and the 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we know that the third note in an A major scale is this note here, this C sharp. So 1, 3, 5. That's the A major chord. Not by intuition, this shape. And we would have intuited that very naturally because that's the shape for C major, that's the shape for G major, that's the shape for F major, so it makes sense that that could possibly be A major, but it's not, because we figured out where the first, the third, and the fifth are. So knowing the scale, knowing the major scale, and where all the notes lay is really useful, because now we can tell when a chord is a major chord and when it's a minor chord, and what makes that so. So by learning A major there, we know that if we want to get to A minor, we just have to flatten this note, the third. Because flattening the third makes it a minor chord. So A minor. So let's apply that to the G major chord that we just learnt. If we wanted to make this a G minor, we'd flatten the third note. So 1, 3, 5. So this note here would go half a step down. Major, flatten the third, minor. Let's carry on. Let's try this with the F. The 1, 3, 5. Let's flatten the third note. F minor. F major. F minor. And finally for our C, flatten the third note. C minor. C major. C minor. So learning scales isn't just about theory. Of course, there's lots of theory embedded within it, but if we understand the theory, we can then apply it to making chords, making sequences, creating songs. So it really benefits us to know that this is the G major scale. My plan over the next few weeks is to drill into the major scales, all of the major scales. So by the next few lessons, we will have learned every major scale there is, so that we can gently chip away at them. Some of them will be easier than others. That G major scale with the 1 black note feels fairly manageable, but we just found out from applying this that A major scale feels a little trickier. So some of them might take a bit more time to get under our fingers, which is why it's good to gently chip away at them so we can keep refreshing them in our memories and in our fingers, so that when we're moving on to more complex work, they're already there, ready to support the harder work we're doing. So I hope that's really handy and you're looking forward to that. Trust me, it's going to pay dividends to our playing if we understand this. So stick with it, find the fun in it, and enjoy the progression of your playing, because we will get better and better and better as we drill this more and more. Stay tuned for next week's practice along session, where I'll be setting a timer and we'll be drilling some of this with our right hand, left hand, then together to get them nice and secure. Let me know what your wins of the week are, anything you would like to learn in the future. Let me know where you're learning from. But in the meantime, thank you so much for joining. Thank you for learning the piano with me, and I'll see you soon on Piano Practice Partner.